Welcome to Entre News, a production of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Entre News, our podcast from NFTE, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, where we talk with changemakers who are shaping the future of entrepreneurship education. I'm your host, Dr. JD LaRock, President and CEO of NFTE, and today I am thrilled to be joined by an old friend and a real pillar of our NFTE community, Sven Ripsas, who has helped bring NFTE's mission across the Atlantic. Sven, how are you today?
I'm very fine. Thank you very much, JD, for the invitation and for the opportunity to talk with you today.
Oh, it's our great pleasure. You are a professor of entrepreneurship at the Berlin School of Economics and Law. You are founder of NFTE Germany. We're going to get well into that. You're also a leading researcher on business model development, startup ecosystems, and entrepreneurship education. And with that, podcast listeners and viewers, we're going to be exploring today what entrepreneurship looks like in a global context, how NFTE has evolved in Germany, and what the future holds for the next generation of innovators. So let's get into it. And we'll start at the beginning, Sven. Let's go back to your time at Babson College here in the US and Massachusetts when you met NFTE's founder, Steve Mariotti. What was it about that moment and that mission that inspired you to launch NFTE Germany?
Wow, yeah, that was a life-changing moment. And of course, it was because of Steve. Maybe it was even more because of the student he brought with him to Babson College. And when we had our symposium for entrepreneurship educators in those days, it was amazing for me to see how a 15-year-old he brought with him standing on stage in front of, let me guess, about 100 professors and entrepreneurs from all over the United States. And Steve Mariotti and this girl, they explained her nifty project, and that was building a business plan, and not only one, but two, to develop her future. And it was amazing to see. It was a very provoking thing. And Steve did with her what she was used to see from a lot of people around her: one business plan for dealing with drugs, and one business plan for a career of her own in a website developing small startup, talking about all the risks and what do you want from life. Do you want to get into a criminal network? Do you want to get under pressure? Do you get the risk of being raped or whatever? Or do you want to build an entrepreneurial career, have a family, raise your kids? And that was amazing to see that all this is part of the entrepreneurial development. And I said to Steve, whenever you go across the Atlantic, this is something we need in Germany as well.
Wow. So let's get into that a little bit more. How did you then take that conversation and that early experience and you play a role in getting NFTE Germany set up? Walk us through that story a little bit.
It was really something, going back to this moment with Steve and Babson, I thought that this is entrepreneurship, how I was missing it at the university, how I was missing it at school, helping youth to develop their own careers with a topic they are thrilled of. It's not something they just work for someone in some office or whatever, but they build their future on what they are really keen to do. And I was talking to a lot of people in Germany, and it was one entrepreneur here who has been in contact with a German, British, Dutch entrepreneur from the Brenningmeier family. And it was Stephen Brenningmeier then, he himself, as an entrepreneur, who said, we want to bring this into the German educational system. And we had been discussing very hard because the first idea the entrepreneur Stephen had was to go for the high schools in the 11th and 12th grade. And I said, well, this is not the idea of NFTE. We want to reach out to all the students that might not be so lucky to have a family that is rich, that is already rich, that are already on the university track, that will become dentists, lawyers, business people, whatever. We want to reach out to those that are maybe in a critical situation. We want to reach out to what we call the inner city at risk youth. We call it Brennpunktschulen. Yeah, so these schools in a location which is maybe not that well off. And to bring the entrepreneurial spirit and the opportunities that go along with becoming an entrepreneur, getting a career, getting a profession, and making a way on your own. And hopefully, at the end, being economically better off. That was what we discussed. And at the end, I was able to persuade Stephen and the entrepreneur to start not at the German 12th grade with all the best kids and the best schools, but with an approach for everybody in ninth and 10th grade.
Wow, that's fantastic. And, I get the question all the time because, as you know, under my time leading NFTE these past 6 years almost, we've put a lot of focus on growing our global work. And every once in a while, someone asks me why. And I give an answer similar to the story you just told. NFTE has a 40-year history in the US of working in underserved communities and providing those opportunities that young people sometimes don't have. And those situations exist in Germany and every other country as well. As a matter of fact, I often find that the need for entrepreneurship education may even be greater in some other countries outside the US. And so that's a reason why we do our work, and obviously was a big connection point between the founding of NFTE Germany and NFTE's classic work. By the way, NFTE Germany has been doing its work for quite some time.
Last year, we celebrated our 20th anniversary, and we were really thrilled to have you with us giving your speech. And it was very special for us because over a period of 20 years, a lot of things are changing in the educational system. We had seen a lot of changes with sponsors and partners. For us, it was always very important to keep a close link to NFTE US because we are persuaded that the spirit that Steve Mariotti has built into NFTE US, and a lot of people have helped to grow this spirit over the United States, is something that we want to have here as well. And I think I'm really a big fan of the European Union, but what we also need is this bridge to this entrepreneurial and the culture of the US. And I think that this is something that both sides of the Atlantic benefit from. So I'm very, very happy that over the 20 years, NFTE Germany always, I would say, had a very good relation with NFTE US, and we are very happy to have you as a big supporter of our new initiatives and of our growth here in Germany.
We consider you an important partner. Let's get into some of these cross cultural differences, though. So, tell our listeners and our viewers how entrepreneurship education and entrepreneurship may differ in terms of the German perception versus the US perception, especially when it comes to concepts like taking risks and
Mm.
failing and
Yeah.
innovation. How are these things perceived, and are they different from how we might think about them in the US context?
They are. The German educational system is very risk averse, and it's not really supporting these initiatives in the economic area. I think we have a very long tradition in experimenting in engineering and life science, especially in engineering. Our young people and our education system is used to experiment, to do risk. But when it comes to money, that's a complete different sector. Everybody is very risk averse. And I think we have missed this entrepreneurial revolution that started in the US in the, let's say, late 80s. And a lot of things have changed. It's not only that when you look at the big companies in the world, at the moment, we don't see a lot of German companies there. That has been different 30 years ago. 30, 35 years ago, among the top 100 companies in the world were a lot of German companies. That's not the case anymore. It's not only because of the digital revolution we missed, but it's also because of the entrepreneurial revolution we missed. We do a lot of good things here. I think that our sustainability activities are very much needed all over the world. And I think Germany is doing very well in this area. But in order to pay for all this, we have to be a little bit more entrepreneurial again. So you asked me about the risk. Yes, this is something where we have to bring our experimental laboratories. We love laboratories when it comes to chemical situation. There's a high appreciation among Germans for people that do research in laboratories. But they don't think of a startup or of a new initiative as a laboratory of finding out what the customer needs, finding out what I as an entrepreneur can achieve. And this is what we are about to bring to the German educational system.
That's really fantastic and really interesting to think about because here in the US, to the extent that people know about the German educational system, what they mostly talk about and what they really respect is the dual system. The alignment of the education system with established companies, the tradition of apprenticeships, and being able to make connections for young people between their learning and having a job and a career. And as you know, right now in the US, there's a great deal of conversation about the idea that the United States needs to do more of that in its own public schools. And so it's really interesting to know that that conversation is going on here in the US right now, and that the German system provides some kind of positive example. And then also to hear you talk about the ways in which NFTEs work and the openness to entrepreneurship education in the US is some kind of a model for Germany. Do you see that slowly changing though for the better as NFTE Germany and you and your colleagues have done that work? Do you see more of a recognition that entrepreneurship really cultivates important things in young people and that the Germany model, should be adopted at a greater level?
Yes, of course, I'm in my bubble. But
Mm.
I would say that we see a lot of positive change. As always, in German institutions, we are very slow, but it's a profound change going on. So, entrepreneurship education is entering the classical curricula in a lot of states. So, the German educational system is not a central system, so similar, I guess, to the US. We have 16 states in Germany, and every state has his own educational system. So that is one of the challenges for a nonprofit organization like NFTE, that we have not one person to speak to, but we have at least 16 states with a lot of institutions that we have to talk to. But we see a lot of positive change. Some of those states faster, some a little bit slower, but the openness is very big. And you mentioned that I'm doing a lot of research in the last years in the field of entrepreneurship education. And I went especially into the teacher education curricula. So, how can we educate our teachers to use more projects, to use what we do in NFTE, this personality building and economic self efficacy? How can we try to increase economic self efficacy and all this? And I see this change going on. And at the end, that makes me think very positive that we have our framework that differs to the US. Of course, we have the German framework, when we have the European Union framework. The European Union has an entrepreneurial competence framework defined already 10 years ago. So, where we work together to give teachers an idea how to strengthen entrepreneurial competences already as early as first grade. So we all look at Austria. There are very entrepreneurial changes are going on there with a little bit a different twist than we do in Germany. I would say in Germany, when we talk about entrepreneurship, we have a little bit more focus on the economics and the business side. And our Austrian partners have a little bit more focus on the personality growth, the person. But at the end, we want to have problem solvers, change makers that build the economy of the future.
It is really interesting to reflect on the differences in emphasis between entrepreneurship education in different countries. Like you were saying, in Germany, the interest is more on economic self sufficiency, Austria, maybe on the personal development side. In the US, probably both, I would say. At NFTE, we're very, very interested, as you know, in developing the entrepreneurial mindset within students and helping students cultivate that. But we really also want increasing numbers of our NFTE students to actually launch businesses and to obtain personal wealth from that. When I think about some of the other countries that we are all working together with, in Israel, our partners there, very much reflect the startup, and tech orientation of Israeli society. And then in Singapore, it's a lot about helping students be less averse to risk, like we were talking about earlier. So I think when it comes to research, there is some good research to be done on what drives entrepreneurial education in different countries and what can we learn about different societies and different education systems by noting those differences. As a professor, Sven, what other things beyond the things you've already mentioned would you say are important for researchers and scholars to be examining with respect to youth entrepreneurship education?
I focus it even more to the youth entrepreneurship education in Germany. And here it comes how we deal with profit. The last, I would say, 25 to 30 years have seen the growth of the Green Party, the growth of a quite capitalistic critical society. And we have, as entrepreneurship educators, we have the problem that very fast a lot of people very quickly they put us into the profit maximization box, which I always try to claim that profits are important. We have to pay taxes. We want to make the people having an aim to become rich with your own ideas, so profits are fine, but entrepreneurship is much more than that. We have the social entrepreneurship part. We have a lot of sustainability initiatives driven by a personality. It was a change maker who was not going for profits. And that's also fine. But a lot of German teachers are not really aware of how important profits are as an incentive, as a driver of the economic and the market system. You mentioned that I was at Babson College. Before I came to Babson College, I studied one semester at NYU with, I think, one of the best entrepreneurship economists, Israel Kurtzner. And his market process theory is really something that is definitely not known in Germany. The entrepreneur as a person in the market process driving the market, but he's not the capitalist. We have two figures in this play, the entrepreneur and the capital providing investor. And this is something I'm trying to bring to the German society, that we have both players are very important, but here in Germany, we do not distinguish for that.
Mm.
So for us, the investor and sometimes this profit maximization investor, you can see that sometimes critical, of course, but it's not the entrepreneur. He's just putting the money into good ideas, into good projects. You were asking as a researcher, what am I doing? I'm trying to make our educational sector aware of what's the role of the entrepreneur in the market.
And that's really important. I think that kind of research is important in the US context, where even with the fact that our country here is much more accepting of capitalism and much more interested in entrepreneurship, here many CEOs and especially entrepreneurs are celebrities oftentimes. Some of them are controversial celebrities, some of them are beloved, but there is somewhat of a culture of respecting entrepreneurship. But with that said, I would say that even here, there's a need for what you just spoke about, really regarding the difference between entrepreneurs and investors. And one way I think about it is to think about the capitalists in the equation, the investors, as really being the next step for a budding young entrepreneur to be able to bring their dreams out into reality. They're an important component of that. And we find that with the work that we do with young alumni who have been through the Nifty US program and are continuing to build their business. They need access to capital. They need access to capitalists.
That's why we help them create business plans and pitch
Exactly.
decks. And this is how they persuade the people that have the capital to invest into new innovative concepts.
Precisely. How about the other aspects of the entrepreneurial mindset that are part of the work that we do? We've talked about risk, we've talked about capitalism, but there are other things that we talk about that are components of the entrepreneurial mindset, especially resilience and creativity and opportunity recognition. How do those things resonate within the German school system, and how do you think about them?
I think we have a very long tradition in helping young people to follow their dreams, not so much in the economic sector, but when they want to create a new machine, when they want to become investor, the tech, the engineering part, when they want to change something in the social sector, when they build something for the community with this sense for helping others that are not as well off as others. So we encourage the young people to do a lot of projects in this area. So we have the tools to make people follow their dreams. What is new is that with entrepreneurship education and in the nifty sense, we want to say, okay, you can also do this. You are not only depending on an employer or on the social welfare state, which I don't know if you followed the news of the last 2 days in Germany. We are running into a situation where the social welfare state is really critical because it has grown far too big. Government will run out of money over the next decades. So there will be a big change. And I think it will be a good change because people, again, will be more self sustaining. I think we have to prepare them for this because we have the tools. Yeah, entrepreneurship education can provide the young people to become economically self-sustaining, and this is necessary because of the changes that are ahead, but it's also good for the people because I think that builds, and this is maybe another topic that is very important from the research side, entrepreneurship and people that earn their own money and have an idea how they are playing an important role in the economy are much more supporting democracy and the situation we have, our democratic system is relying on the people having an economically good future. And this is something that a lot of educational people see at the moment. So that's why entrepreneurship education is also seen as strengthening our democratic system.
That's really interesting to hear you comment on, and I can see the connection very easily. Entrepreneurship is, in many ways, about personal freedom, the
Yeah.
ability to develop and live out your dreams through creating a business. And democracy and liberty are about freedom as well, and about
Yes.
having access to the equal access to the tools of society in order to build your life in a positive way. So I'm really glad to hear you say that entrepreneurs are strongly supporting the democratic ideal as you see it playing out in Germany. And I would say that there's a link that we should be thinking about and talking about even more so in the United States. As we wrap up our conversation here, I'd love to hear just a few reflections on things that have made you proud in 20 years of helping to lead Nifty Germany and where you see the future of Nifty Germany going.
I'm very happy that I've been able to be a part of Nifty Germany for 20 years. I've seen our CEOs over the first years. I was with Nifty Germany from the very beginning as head of the scientific board. And I became then the CEO of Nifty Germany, like 5 years, 6 years ago, very similar to when you took office. And I'm very proud that we have survived. That as an NGO in the educational sector, it's not normal that you live that long, that you are that well regarded. I have the pleasure to have a very good team. We have very good distribution of labor among us. You know Guido very well, who is networking into a lot of areas that I'm not so familiar with. I'm trying to build the research and a political network for Nifty. And I'm very, very happy that I can do the teaching, the CETI, as we still call it. I don't know if that still exists. So I'm teaching our teachers every year, and this is something I love. If you would ask me for the future in Germany, in I think 5 out of the 16 states, entrepreneurship education is now built into the teacher educational curricula from the very first semester. And with 2 of the states, we are very closely working together with Berlin and with Lower Saxony. And I would love to see in 20 years that all our states and every teacher education curricula, entrepreneurship education built into that.
How about let's make a deal, you and I, right now? You focus on going from 5 to 16 states in Germany. We're focusing on going from 30 to 50 states in the US doing entrepreneurship education. Let's keep working on that and checking in with each other, and we can make it happen. I'm confident on that. So I know this about you. You have visited many states in the US. As a matter of fact, I think you've visited more states than I have. What is one state that you really want to visit that you haven't visited yet, or a place that you haven't visited yet in the US that you'd really like to visit? And then give our viewers and listeners, maybe who haven't been to Germany, maybe your favorite place for them to
Okay.
visit.
Okay. It's very easy. I would love to see the northwest of the US, Seattle, and all this area. I've never been to this area. Everybody I speak to is absolutely thrilled and says what kind of beautiful area, nice people. So I would really love to go there. That's what I would love to do. And when it comes to Germany, of course, there are two places I would recommend to all the viewers here. Berlin is definitely this city for me. I was born in Berlin. I lived in New York. I lived in Mexico. And my wife worked in London. All beautiful places. But at the end, for us, it's really Berlin that offers the best. You can have it all here. That's really nice. And the North Sea, the coast of Germany in the northwest, is something that is so special that I would recommend everybody who's viewing that to go to a town that's called St. Peter-Ording. And it's so beautiful because the beach is so big and it's cold normally, except for July and August. But it's a nature, wonder.
Well, that's wonderful. And having spent time with you and Guido and all of your partners last year in Berlin, I can definitely say Berlin is a wonderful place to visit and so remarkable when you think of the history that has touched that city over many, many hundreds of years, and particularly in the 20th and 21st centuries. It's a deep place to visit. Well, Sven, thank you so much for sharing your story, your insights, and your deep commitment to entrepreneurship education. You're a great partner, and we're really glad that NFTE Deutschland is a part of our whole network. And it was a delight to come into NFTE 6 years ago and to know that you were there already leading the work with your colleagues and helping German students see themselves as creators of change. Your vision continues to affect what we do as NFTE continues to grow globally. So thank you.
Thank you so much, JD. It was a pleasure, and I hope to work with you on our expansion in the US and in Germany. Thank you.
Fantastic. And listeners and viewers, as always, stay connected with NFTE at nifty.com and join us next time for even more conversations at the intersection of education, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Thank you for listening.
Entre News is a production of the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. For more information, visit nfte.com.